It's a good bounce back win for us today. I thought we started the game with the right tone on the defensive end, and so that was that was by design for us to get back to.
It is the announcement that shattered the internet and finally put to rest one of the most heated debates in sports history. But the reaction from the head coach is what has everyone talking, because after months of speculation, endless arguments on social media, and a rookie season that completely rewrote the record books, Caitlin Clark has officially made her way into the Team USA system. And the response from the coaching staff is complicated, to say the least. For a long time, the narrative was that she wasn't ready, that she had to wait her turn, and that the veterans had earned their spots through years of loyalty and grind. But when you look at the numbers, the ratings, and the undeniable talent on the floor, the decision-makers simply ran out of excuses. And the moment the news dropped, all eyes turned to Coach Cheryl Reeve. This is the same coach who had to field thousands of angry questions during the Paris cycle. The same coach who famously said roster spots aren't handed out based on fan bases. So what changed? Did the coaching staff truly have a change of heart, or was the pressure from the league, the sponsors, and Clark's undeniable dominance just too much to ignore? To understand the weight of this reaction, we have to face the awkward reality of what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, and why this happy announcement might actually be the beginning of a massive internal power struggle within the world's greatest basketball dynasty. But before analyzing the coach's shocking new tone, we have to go back to the decision that almost broke women's basketball. Because without understanding the snub, you can't understand the victory. When the roster for the last major cycle was announced without Caitlin Clark's name, the backlash was unlike anything USA basketball had ever seen. Usually, roster snubs are one-day stories. A veteran gets left off, people complain, and everyone moves on. But this was different. This wasn't just about a player, it was about a movement. Clark had just finished the most-watched college career in history and was single-handedly selling out arenas in the WNBA. Yet the committee decided she wasn't essential for the mission. The official explanation focused on experience and chemistry. They argued the international game is different, more physical, and that a rookie, no matter how talented, couldn't simply walk onto the greatest team in the world and expect meaningful minutes. On paper it sounded logical, but to fans it felt like gatekeeping, like the old guard protecting its turf against the new face of the sport. Rumors immediately began circulating that certain veteran players had whispered in the ears of the selection committee, suggesting that bringing Clark along would turn the Olympics into a media circus and distract from the goal of winning gold. Whether those rumors were true or not, perception became reality for millions of fans who saw a league that seemed resentful of its own savior. The snub created a massive divide, Clark supporters on one side and WNBA loyalists on the other. But while the internet was on fire, Caitlin Clark did the only thing she knows how to do. She went to work. And what happened next is exactly why the committee had no choice but to reverse course. The revenge tour wasn't loud. Clark didn't jump on podcasts to attack the coach or post cryptic messages online. She simply stepped onto the court and started tearing the league apart. After a rough start, getting blitzed and picked up full court every game, she adjusted. And once she adjusted, it was over for the doubters. She broke the rookie assist record, shattered the rookie scoring record, and dropped triple-doubles like they were routine, while turning the Indiana Fever from a lottery-bound team into a legitimate playoff squad. Every argument used to keep her off Team USA was dismantled piece by piece. They said she couldn't handle the physicality. She got knocked down and got back up every time. They called her defense a liability. She started picking pockets and reading passing lanes better than veterans who'd been in the league for a decade. They predicted her efficiency would fall. She began pulling up from the logo with a hand in her face and drilling it. By the time the WNBA season wrapped up, it was clear leaving her home had been a mistake. Not just a marketing mistake, but a basketball mistake. The discourse shifted from, "She needs to wait her turn," to, "How do you leave the best playmaker in the world at home?" And the pressure kept mounting. It wasn't only coming from fans anymore, it was coming from the data. Because there's an elephant in the room no coach wants to admit, but every executive understands: money. Team USA is a dynasty, but dynasties are expensive and they rely on visibility. During games when Clark was absent, ratings were respectable, but nothing compared to the explosion in viewership every time the number 22 jersey hit the floor. The networks noticed. The sponsors noticed, especially the big ones with swooshes on their checks. Reports circulated that major partners were quietly furious about the missed opportunity to showcase Clark on the global stage in Paris. From a business standpoint, leaving a generational talent who brings in millions of new eyes at home looked like malpractice. This financial reality tightened its grip on the selection committee. They could no longer hide behind basketball reasons, because the basketball case now favored Clark, and the business case was screaming in her favor. That's when the tone of the coaching staff began to shift. You could see it in mid-season interviews. The same voices that were dismissive in May were suddenly praising her vision and pace by August. And it was a subtle pivot, a quiet preparation for the inevitable, because they knew they couldn't keep her out forever. They had to start laying the groundwork so her inclusion would look like the plan all along. But that doesn't mean everyone is happy about it. Now we get to the core of the drama, which is Coach Cheryl Reeves' reaction. When the news became official that Clark was entering the Team USA mix for upcoming events, Reeves' comments were fascinating to analyze. On the surface, it was standard coach speak, praising Clark's growth, her acclamation to the pro game, and her undeniable talent. But if you listen closely to the phrasing, you can still hear the friction. There's a sense the coach wants to make it very clear that Clark is earning this spot now, implying she hadn't earned it before. It's a defense mechanism, because admitting Clark should have been there all along would mean admitting a failure in judgment, and coaches at this level rarely do that. Instead, the narrative is being spun that the time off was actually good for her, that not playing in the Olympics saved her legs and allowed her to have that historic second half of the season. A convenient story, isn't it? Almost like saying, we did her a favor by snubbing her. Body language experts analyzing recent press conferences have pointed out a stiffness whenever the topic comes up. There's also a noticeable difference in how the staff talks about veteran favorites like Breanna Stewart or Aya Wilson versus how they talk about Clark. With the vets, there's warmth and shared history. With Clark, it feels more like a business transaction. They know they need her, but they don't necessarily like that she has more power than they do. And make no mistake, Caitlin Clark has the power now because she's the face of the sport, and the coach has to navigate a locker room where the rookie is the biggest star. That brings us to the most volatile part of the equation: locker room dynamics and how the veterans will react to Clark officially becoming the centerpiece. We all remember the comments from Diana Taurasi. The reality is coming warning that sounded a lot like a threat. We saw the hard fouls, the face guarding, and the intense physical play directed at Clark all season long. Some called it a welcome to the league, others called it jealousy. Now those same players have to share a bench with her. They have to pass her the ball. They have to watch the media overlook their gold medals just to ask Clark about her sneakers, and that's a dangerous recipe for team chemistry. It's the coach's nightmare to manage, because if the veterans freeze her out, the team fails. But if the coach caters too much to Clark, she risks losing the locker room. Clark's official inclusion signals that the torch is being passed, but the old guard isn't ready to let go just yet. We even saw glimpses of this tension in the All-Star game, where Clark's chemistry with Angel Reese looked smoother than her chemistry with Team USA veterans, a subtle warning sign. The coach has to bridge that gap. She has to convince the legends that Clark helps them win, not just sell tickets. Yet there's a lingering suspicion that the hazing period isn't over, and now that she's on the national team, practices might be even more brutal than the games. This is where Clark's mental toughness will be tested more than her jump shot. Can she lead a team that might not want to be led by her? That's the big question. But if we strip away the drama and look purely at basketball, this move was inevitable. The world is catching up, and we saw it in the final game against France, a game that was far too close for comfort. Team USA won by a single point, literally inches away from losing gold. The gap has closed because European teams are skilled, they're big, and they're fearless. The old formula of simply overpowering opponents with athleticism is fading. Now you need elite shooting, spacing, and playmaking that can unlock a zone defense, which is exactly what Caitlin Clark provides. She's the best floor spacer on the planet. Her range stretches defenses out to 30 feet, opening the paint for Aya Wilson and Breanna Stewart. Without Clark, the offense can become stagnant, leaning too heavily on isolation scoring. With Clark, the floor opens up. The coaching staff, pride aside, knows this. They watched the tape of the France game, saw how stagnant the offense looked in the fourth quarter, and realized that in the next cycle they might not survive another scare without an offensive engine like her. Personal feelings and loyalty to the old system start to fade when the fear of losing gold enters the conversation. Bringing Clark in isn't just a marketing move anymore, it's a survival strategy. Just like the Dream Team needed Magic and Bird, but also needed Jordan, Clark is the new Jordan in this scenario, the engine driving the car, even if some passengers are grumpy about the music she's playing. The transition, however, won't be seamless. We should expect bumps in the road, especially since the coach has already hinted Clark will have to fight for her minutes. Code 4, we're not handing her the keys just yet. Expect her to come off the bench in early appearances, and expect the coach to ride her hard on defense in practice. It's a test. They want to see whether she folds or dominates. It's the classic Team USA methodology: break you down to build you up. But Clark is different. She doesn't need Team USA to be a star. Usually the national team is the pinnacle, but for Clark, she's already bigger than the brand in many ways, and that gives her leverage no rookie has ever had. If the coach treats her unfairly, the public backlash will be 10 times worse than the Olympic snub, because the microscope is now on Coach Cheryl Reeve. Every substitution pattern, every timeout, and every quote will be dissected. If Clark plays 5 minutes and sits, the internet will explode. If the offense struggles while she's on the bench, the coach will be trending on Twitter within seconds. This is the new reality. The official announcement didn't end the controversy, it simply moved it from the outside to the inside. The drama isn't gone, it's just inside the house now. And then there's the future lineup. Imagine the possibilities of a backcourt featuring Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers in the near future. That's a duo that could dominate international basketball for a decade. The coach knows this, and she also knows that as great as Diana Taurasi has been, you can't fight Father Time forever. The roster turnover is happening, and by officially bringing Clark in now, they're starting the clock on the next generation. It signals to the rest of the world that the reload is already underway. But it also raises the brutal question of who gets cut next, because if Clark is in, someone else is out. That conversation is never easy. There are loyal soldiers of USA basketball who have given up their summers for years and are now facing the possibility of losing their spots to a phenomenon. That breeds resentment. The coach is the one who has to deliver that message. Sorry, you're out, we need the roster spot for the player everyone is talking about. It's a harsh business. The reaction from players on the bubble may be silence, but it's a loud silence, because they're playing for their careers now. Clark's arrival has raised the stakes for everyone, and practice intensity is about to skyrocket because nobody wants to be the one replaced by the rookie. So where does this leave us? We have a coach saying all the right things but carrying a history of skepticism. We have a superstar who has proven every doubter wrong and has the global fan base behind her. We have veterans clinging tightly to their roles. And we have the undeniable truth that Team USA needs Caitlin Clark more than she needs them. The coach's reaction is officially acceptance, but the subtext still feels like reluctance. She's being welcomed because they have to, and now that she's inside the gates, the real game begins. This isn't just basketball anymore. It's about control, who truly controls the team, the legendary coach or the transcendent star. The next few months of training camps and qualifiers will reveal the truth. If the ball is in Clark's hands and the offense flows, we'll know the transition is complete. But if she's standing in the corner while the veterans play keep away, we'll know the war is still on. One thing, however, is certain. The snub is over and Caitlin Clark has arrived. Whether the coach, the team, or the critics like it or not, the program now revolves around her. The dynasty may have been saved, but the cost was the ego of the establishment, a price many fans are more than willing to see paid. The era of 22 for Team USA is officially underway, and nothing will ever feel the same again. Which leads to the next question. What happens when they actually step on the court together? Opposing defensive schemes will have to change the moment they realize they need to guard her from the parking lot. International coaches are probably losing sleep already. Planning for Team USA was always a nightmare, but planning for a roster that includes a shooter who can pull up from 35 feet breaks every traditional defensive rule in the handbook. And we can't ignore the mentorship angle. For all the tension, there's also the potential for greatness if the veterans choose to embrace her instead of resist her. Imagine what Clark could absorb from the leadership of Aya Wilson or the versatility of Breanna Stewart if egos are set aside. This could become a true passing of the torch moment, the kind that shapes the next 20 years of women's basketball, much like when Kobe Bryant joined the Redeem team and learned leadership from Jason Kidd and the rest. The upside is enormous, but it requires humility from players who are used to being the alpha presence. The coach is the architect of this culture. If Cheryl Reeve manages these personalities successfully, she'll be remembered as one of the greatest talent managers in the sport's history. But if she mishandles it and the locker room fractures, it could leave a stain on her legacy that no gold medal can erase. The stakes have never been higher.